Recording. All right, so we're recording this, and this is just a show and tell meeting. Andrea and I are just sharing some things that we put together recently. So I'm going to share my screen here, and it's going. Just there. All right, cool. So suppose get this a little smaller. Okay, well, anyway, so just want to share two things really quick. The first is that a while ago, my daughter wanted to put together a site for board games. And so she got into playing board games and all this. And so pretty easy to just go ahead and create like a custom post type. I actually wanted this to be as low code as possible for me. So I normally don't do this, but I used the custom post types UI, which you kind of see here. Move that over a little bit. So custom post types UI to create a games post type and everything. So pretty standard stuff right there. But what that does is on the front end, if there's a game, you get a game post type here, and you have in the game slug and stuff like that. So this one was called fairy tiles and everything. And we've got the standard like categories and tags here, and then like a description. So I did a couple of things here, and I'll show. So we're using the block editor, and one of the first things I did, because she's learning kind of to type and fill this out at the same time, was to create a pattern for her to use. So we can bring in basically just like a brief description and all this other stuff, and she can list her thoughts. But the other thing I wanted to do was create a rating system for her. So this block in particular is a way for her to say that she, is giving it hearts or stars and stuff like that. And this is a custom block. So I actually have a tutorial on setting that up here on the WordPress developer blog. So it's setting up a multi-block plugin using inner blocks and post meta. And you can look back here and think, well, why do I want this set up to? Why do I need this to be like a custom block for a rating? Can I just put stars on the page and call it good? Well, the ability to actually to do a couple of things. One, we want to be able to query this. So I'm actually saving this as post meta so that it shows up and we can actually query games based on the star type and stuff like that. So I think I have this set up. If I go to, oh, these are by tag actually. So I actually need to set this up yet. So what is it? Our websites are always behind and stuff for developers and everything. But basically, if I wanted to, I could query by star rating and stuff like that. And it would be one of those things to have up here, not necessarily by level, but by review level or something like that. So if I wanted to, I could do that. But what that allows this to do is also pull in the actual rating here on the template for this homepage, for example. So come over here and go in the group stack. I believe it's in here. Yeah. So now we've got our query loop and it's pulling in filters. Actually, I haven't looked at this in a long time. Seeing how this works again. That's so funny. I think I did this before we really started like our Gutenberg project. But you can see here that part of the post template is pulling in this block, and it's pulling in that rating from the post meta. So this article here walks through setting this all up as far as registering post meta, making sure to show it in REST and stuff like that in the REST API. So that was the first thing to show. The second thing to show is actually on my website and is on this blog. And you can see here, if I refresh, it takes a little bit to load the post, but what's happening here is that I've created and I won't actually be able to log in here because my site is actually static. So I use Simply Static plugin to staticify everything, just make everything flat files, and then launch that up. This is actually on Netlify. I think I'm going to go back to just hosting the WordPress site regular WordPress site. But for a while, I just wanted this to be like static and serverless and everything. But what I've done here is enjoying, search for a title keyword, no need for pagination and stuff. So if somebody comes here and is looking for like serverless, this is going to kind of refresh automatically, or headless, like headless WordPress or something like that. This is going to, yeah, just go through all that. So I think might even, nope. So keyword, I guess, would be like an overstatement potentially, but it's definitely looking through, yeah, sort of looking through tags here and stuff, and everything. So yeah, it was just, there was an old article when static sites started taking off about like, forget pagination, don't do that. If you have a static site, everything's pre-rendered, so you don't need to worry about massive customization. So all these blog posts go back like a decade or whatever for me. Hey, Bauer, haven't seen that guy for a while. So yeah, but it's just like a way, instead of having like a search, the typical WordPress search tab up on the top right or something like that, just to have all my posts here. And if you want to find something, like I said, just start looking for it. So there's some stuff on Gatsby or Laravel, whatever, right? So yeah, and then on the back end, I'd have to like spin up the site locally or whatever, which I totally didn't prepare for that. But this is a custom block, and on the back end, it is just a big placeholder that's like a 600 by 400. That's like blog posts will be displayed here. So yeah, so that's basically like the two things that I've been working on and wanted to share and show. So I don't see anybody else coming in yet. So yeah, good things.
Nice. I was just glancing at the Meetup just to make sure that nobody's like left a message, but I think we're good. Nice. Are you using JSON of your articles to pull in, or the REST API somehow?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. I am using, I wonder if this is a private. Yeah, so basically what I'm doing is I created a custom REST API endpoint to query all that stuff. And then it'll basically refresh, I think, every day, because I'm probably not publishing more than that. But what it will do is that it'll query that endpoint, get all the stuff. And I think I use the WP GraphQL plugin for that as well. It'll query all that and then put it into a JSON file, and then yeah, keep it stored and cached and everything for a couple days and stuff like that. So yeah, so maybe I can put that out in the public sphere and share it around and stuff. I'll put it in the Slack here, the Slack channel, and maybe put it in the discussion notes and stuff here too.
Yeah, so that's super cool.
Yeah.
All
cool.
Right. I can, let's see, I'll figure out how to share again. I'll get my actual slides up. Right. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to explore different ways that you could center text on mobile. This is one of those things that people run into a lot of times, where the design looks great, left justified, but sometimes when something moves into that one column tube of content, you want your text to center on mobile, maybe an image, and there are a few different ways to go about that, and so I just wanted to explore a few of those. So the first easiest option is probably to add some additional CSS. Let me turn this slideshow on because that'll look a little easier. So this is just a screenshot of a theme where you've added the additional CSS class. And then over in the block editor world, the site editor world, you can use the site editor styles editor to add additional CSS there. And then, in your old school hybrid or classic theme world, you can add additional CSS in your customizer. So, that is certainly one way that you can center text on mobile and add a media query. However, There's some limitations to this approach. You know, typing things into the additional CSS can be hard to keep track of. It's not in your version control. The code editor inside of WordPress is not great. There's no like color coding or, it's this narrow little bar. It's kind of there if you need it in a pinch, but it's really not great for code hygiene in general. Also, editors or administrators may not have access to that additional CSS field. They might not want access to that additional CSS field. Where I work, we manage a multi-site network, and we don't give our administrators access to add their own CSS. Also, a lot of WordPress editors are non-technical, or they don't know CSS. They're using a content management system, so this is kind of a barrier to some people. Another option that I just quickly explored was like, hey, maybe you use a third-party plugin. And I explored just a couple of these. There's Cadence blocks and Spectra that they do like interesting things of building onto the Gutenberg or the block editor. This is a screenshot of Cadence where you can see that there's some visibility settings. So like one thing you could do is have one piece of content that is centered but hidden on desktop, and then repeat it and have another piece of content that is left aligned but hidden on mobile. There are probably other plugins out there that actually just do this exact thing where they center something, where they have responsive controls like that. But this was just a quick way that I investigated a way you can do it. But I think the best option is just write your own plugin, right? So this is where I've got some code that I'll share, but yeah, we're going to add a center text on mobile toggle to the group block. We're going to leverage WordPress scripts, the scripts package, and some, lightly configured Webpack. And yeah, we'll use the block editor filters to add a new attribute to center this is centered on mobile state, and then add the toggle to the inspector controls, which is in that right panel, and then update the editor when the class is toggled, because that's the cool thing about the block editor is it's built on React. So this is one of those great reactive things, similar to the example that Nate just showed with the stars and hearts rating, where when you change it in the editor, it's cool that you can see it change on the on the view that you see. We'll also just have a CSS file that has a media query, and we'll use the HTML API to update the front end code based on if that attribute is set. So just a shout out to Nick Diego's Enable Column Direction plugin. I think it was either a WP Developer Hours or a Hallway Hangout, where he presented how you can kind of update a core block with some controls in this manner. And that's the inspiration of this plugin. This is just a screenshot of kind of that plugin in action, where you can see there's this little center text on mobile, and it's applied to that group block, and that it gets centered, but I'll pull that up in a minute. Okay, so I'll share these links and file in Slack and wherever anybody wants it. But here is what this looks like in practice. So here's our group. You can see we've got this center text on mobile toggle, and if we toggle it off, it changes that attribute and removes that class. Toggle it on, it re-adds that class, changes that attribute. That's cool. Let's see. And then I created a plugin, so I needed to activate that plugin to be able to use it. And then here is the actual page where you can kind of see where this has been centered. And then here's just the code in GitHub. So we've got, all right, a light Webpack config. And what this is mostly doing is just pointing to these two files in the source folder. So our index.js, what we're doing is we're importing a lot of WordPress tools, and yeah, we're using a filter to add the core block attribute. So I'm focusing on the group block here. You could focus on more than just the group block, or you could focus on all the blocks if you wanted your toggle to show up on every single block there is. But for this instance, I wanted to make sure that this was only targeting the group block, so it just returns early if it's not the group block. And then we add the block attribute and then add it to the block with a filter. Similar, we're going to add the inspector controls, and that's that panel on the right where you can add a little toggle. I gave it a little title of mobile settings and gave that toggle over here of center on mobile. You'll see that like panel body, inspector control, toggle control, those are all dependencies that we imported earlier on because that's the way that you can leverage the block editor tools. So yes, then we are also using another filter to add that. And then the last thing we're doing in this file is we are detecting when that attribute is set and adding or removing the class based on the attribute that we set up above. So yeah, it's, it looks like a fair amount of JavaScript to add a little toggle, but at the same time, most of this is from, examples, and this is like a pretty, I don't know, a pretty common pattern to be able to add something to the UI, add a class, and then make something happen based on that class being added or removed. So it's a small thing that can lead to kind of great possibilities. And then the only thing that's going on in this SAS, this SCSS file, is it's just a class that has a media query that kind of applies to anything that can handle text-align center, which is your paragraphs, your headlines, probably other things, as long as it's as long as it's going to be able to handle text-align center. So and then our Webpack config. So we are just leveraging the WordPress scripts config and then kind of building on top of that and giving some custom entry points. So because we're not doing the same thing that WordPress WP scripts does out of the box, that's where we need our entry points. And then here in our plugin file, our main plugin file, we are enqueuing those assets. This is where if you are using create block, which kind of sets up a block for you, you kind of don't need to do this step because block.json is enqueuing your assets for you. But because I'm not using block.json, I'm enqueuing my assets here. But I do get to still leverage the version. So this is kind of nice to be able to reach into the asset file that gets built because these asset files include a version number. So every time I update this, then that generates a new version number. So I don't have to worry about this old CSS or JavaScript getting cached. And then the last thing we're doing in this file is this is where we're using the HTML tag processor to go through what would normally be the block content output for the group block and adding on that class. If the is centered mobile returns as true. So that, anyway, so it's one of those things where it seems like maybe a lot to go through to add a toggle, but it's really powerful to be able to add a toggle to a core block like this and be able to kind of build on top of it. And maybe it's something that core doesn't offer yet. Maybe they will down the road, but it's a great way to be able to leverage what's already out there and make it your own. So that's most of that. Let's see if I can figure out how to stop presenting. All right.
Cool. Do you have, so two questions. First is like, do you have a recommended like Webpack resource that you go to for either learning Webpack or learning how to do Webpack for like WordPress block development and
Right.
stuff?
The developer handbook helps out a bit. Otherwise, I've watched some of Ryan Welcher's Twitch streams or recordings of his Twitch streams because he's done a very good job of kind of both exploring how to customize Webpack and explaining it to people like me that don't like customizing Webpack. And yeah, so that's been a huge resource. And then Justin Tadlock too, he's released some the uses of Webpack and themes and in plugins that have really helped make it less scary for me. but
Mhm.
that has been right. That has been a challenge. I've only figured out how to do the basics so far.
Yeah, right on. And you weren't using Create Block on that one. Is that do you have a reason for not doing it? Just out of curiosity, or not
Right,
using Create Block?
right. Because I'm using the core block, I wasn't sure if if like including the block that way was the best route to
Mm,
go. But it might be, right. I think being able to leverage block.json is really helpful to be able to just let that do the routing for you.
hmm.
Um, but because this is not a custom block,
Right.
I'm still exploring the best way to do that. So right now,
Yeah.
I'm basically just recreating that part with all the enqueuing.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I think like, we're all in this kind of spot, right, where we're trying to figure out the best way forward. And I think like for the specific use case too, right, where it's you don't want to create block would be overkill probably in this case and stuff. But yeah, I was just curious about that. So cool. All right. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nobody else is coming. So
This is great. Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully next month somebody will have something cool to share. Summers can be quiet times, which is all
yeah,
right.
yeah, for sure. So especially reschedule and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. Becky, if you're watching this in the future, hope that everything's all good. And yeah. Um, anything else, Andrea?
That's it for me.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.